Pizza is one of my favorite foods. Full disclosure, I once ate it for breakfast. No, not for breakfast. I ate it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 10 days straight. And one of the reasons that I was able to do that is because it can be so versatile and it's so yummy. But if you look at like the spread of ingredients I have here in front of me today, there's so many different directions that we can go with pizza. And I'm gonna show you a couple of those today. Hi and welcome to In the Kitchen with Ashley. This is your cooking series brought to you by Healthy Columbus and Fresh Food, Fresh Perspective. And today we are doing homemade pizzas. One of the reasons I love doing homemade pizzas is you really have that control over the nutrients that you want in there. You know, we can like adjust the calories, the carbs, the sodium, and then the flavor, obviously, and kind of craft different pizzas to your liking. It's also a really fun activity to do with kids. And this is one of my favorite things I do with my nephews. We'll do pizza night. We have a little toppings bar set up and everyone can kind of make their own little pizza to their liking. I do have a rule that you have to do 3 different veggies on there. It's just a fun way to kind of get the kids involved and get them excited about eating some vegetables while also still having pizza. So as I mentioned, there's a ton of options these days when it comes to pizza. And I'm talking about pizza you get from the store, pizza from the frozen aisle. And there has been a lot of, I think, movement lately to make healthier options. So, you know, I think like Donato's even has cauliflower crust pizza. Or, you know, different pizza shops have different healthier pizza versions. Same thing with frozen. In fact, that could be a whole segment in and of itself, is comparing the health value of different frozen pizzas. Again, I like to do it at home because you can really manipulate it to be exactly what you're looking for, both in terms of taste and nutrition. All right, so the first thing we gotta decide when we're making a pizza is the crust. And there are so many options out there. In fact, one interesting thing I found is lately it's really hard to find whole grain crust available. I think just because of the recent, popularity of cauliflower crust. That being said, I found some really great whole grain options that you can actually order on Amazon. So that's an option if you wanted these kind of pre-made crusts that keep it a lot simpler. You can always make your own whole grain crust, cauliflower crust, and those types of things at home. It does add another degree of difficulty and time to it. So usually when I'm doing pizzas, I get the pre-made crusts and I keep it easy for myself. So I have a couple different ones to show you today. So this big one here, this is a cauliflower crust from Veggie. And in general, cauliflower crusts are gonna be lower in carbs, calories, fat, protein, sodium, all of those things as compared to a typical crust. However, that's not always the case. And so what I encourage people to do is always read the labels. So for example, even though this is a cauliflower crust from Veggie, if you read the label, the first ingredient is wheat flour. So if someone's gluten intolerant, you're trying to avoid grains, you might want to choose one of the cauliflower crust options out there. I've seen them in the frozen section especially that are pure cauliflower. They don't have any, regular flour in there, but we're working with this one today. Some other options, and I like these little ones actually. Like I said, we like to do pizza night. Everyone can kind of make their own little individual pizza. I actually keep them around the house, and if I don't have a lunch, it's like, great, do I have some veggies that are already cut up in the fridge? I always have a little sauce because I love it. Throw some cheese on there. So I do have another cauliflower. This is another one from Trader Joe's. Now this one does not have the flour in there. So just wanted to kind of show you the difference, that this is a thicker kind of, more together crust, and in fact I don't need to put anything on the pan when I'm cooking it. This one, it has to be refrigerated. If you can see, I actually even just tore it right here. It's a little thinner, a little harder to work with. And when you make the pizzas, they're not always as, like solid or crunchy. So usually if I'm doing this, I end up eating it with a knife and fork. Still tastes great, but just kind of want to let you know the difference there. This is a high protein crust. So in one crust, there's 18 grams of protein. And the benefit of protein, if you remember when we're talking with having it with a carby crust, is it actually helps us stay fuller, and it offsets the carbohydrates in there, slowing the absorption, so it's gonna be a slower rise in blood sugar. So when you're trying to figure out a crust, I tell people, start thinking about what are we looking for? Just because a cauliflower crust might be lower in certain, calories, carbs, and those types of things, doesn't mean it's necessarily better or healthier for you than a whole grain crust. Whole grains come with extra fiber, they come with extra nutrients. So it's really kind of assessing, what are my nutrient needs? What do I like from a taste perspective? And what's gonna really be working for me in the kitchen that night? Do I need just these prepackaged shelf-stable ones that great, I open it, throw it down? Do I have time? I feel like making my own crust. You can kind of go different ways. Did wanna show this too. So this is actual just dough that you can get, already made dough from Trader Joe's. They unfortunately don't have the wheat one they used to do, which was so fantastic. But if you loved it, there's some good recipes online to mimic it. But this is an option too, and it can be fun. You throw the flour down, you roll it out. Again, it's just kind of what you're looking for and your degree of difficulty. Two things I want to point out with this also are my 2 kitchen hacks when it comes to pizza. So you see this right here, I have the parchment paper down. When I'm working with crusts, especially these cauliflower type ones, or if I am gonna be a little crazy with the cheese and have it melt over the edge, I love cooking with parchment paper. It doesn't stick, you don't need to put any oil or anything down, and then it's gonna keep your pan nice and clean. This, for example, this, you can see this crust right here, is not gonna stick to the pan. My other kitchen hack, my pizza necessity, are scissors. So my friends always think I'm crazy, but then they see it and they're like, oh, that's a good idea. So if you have a pizza cutter, great. When I cut pizzas, and I'll show you this at the end, I use the scissors and I just cut my pizzas that way. So 2 little tools you might want in your kitchen as well. The next thing you have to think about once you've picked your crust is the sauce or the base that you're gonna use. You can go with the traditional tomato pizza sauce. One thing to note here is they tend to be high in sodium. So, again, reading the labels, looking at the sodium amount and paying attention to what that serving size is. Typically it's gonna be a 1/4 cup. You can kind of think how much you'll use for your pizza, divide it out by servings. But there are, again, I found them on Amazon. I had trouble finding them in the stores, but I found some that have as low as 40 milligrams of sodium per 1/2 cup. So based on your nutrient needs, if you're watching your sodium, if someone in your family is, you might wanna go with that, or you could just go with a regular one. But you don't have to use pizza sauce. So pesto is a great option. I love pesto as a base. I'm gonna actually show you a little chicken pesto pizza. And even just like drizzling olive oil as the base, and I'll show you another version of that with some chicken with a pizza. Keeping in mind, when we're looking at the calorie content, olive oil and pesto both have a lot of fat in them. It's good fat, it's heart healthy fat, it decreases inflammation, it's good for our cholesterol, but it's calorie dense. So you wanna go light on these. It's about a tablespoon of pesto or olive oil is about 100 to 120 calories per tablespoon. So just keep that in mind as you're putting your pizza together. So the next thing we want to think about is what cheese are we going to use? Using a traditional mozzarella or like pizza cheese blend is pretty typical, but you can be really versatile with that. And even within that, you have some choices to make. So I just wanted to show you 2 different mozzarellas and kind of compare the nutrition there. So we have a whole milk mozzarella cheese, and we have a light mozzarella cheese. And again, this is gonna be kind of depending on your nutrition goals, your nutrient needs, your taste preferences. Keeping it real, I prefer the whole milk one. It has a richer taste, it melts a little better, but this is not like a fat-free cheese. I don't know if you've ever tried to melt fat-free cheese. It doesn't go well, I don't recommend it. And one of the things that happens is when we take the fat out of cheese, while it does reduce the calorie content, so again, just comparing these 2, so an ounce, which is about a 1/4 cup, an ounce of the whole milk cheese is gonna be 90 calories. An ounce of the light cheese is about 60 calories. So are those 30 calories important to you? Maybe, maybe not, but also keep in mind they add up, right? So the more pieces of pizza you have, and if you're making kind of these smaller decisions and saving 10, 20, 30 calories with a sauce and a cheese and a crust, those do add up. But then looking at some other differences. So this has 7 grams of fat, including 4.5 grams of saturated fat. And the saturated fat is the one that we want to have less often. Those are the ones that do raise our cholesterol. They might increase inflammation in our bodies. So this one only has 2 grams of fat and only 1.5 grams of saturated fat. So if you're looking at heart health, maybe you're kind of thinking, okay, I'm gonna go maybe with the lighter version. However, this only has 1 gram of carbohydrates, and when we take the fat out, it actually concentrates the carbohydrates in dairy products, and there's been this whole shift kind of back to being pro full-fat dairy products, especially for people who are watching their blood sugar. So this is 1 gram of carbohydrate compared to 3. And again, at the end of the day, is that a huge, huge difference? Not really, but I did want to kind of let you know there's different options available. And then you don't have to go with mozzarella. So we're gonna use some goat cheese crumbles for one of my pizzas today. You like that cheesy taste, but you really are watching, because again, cheese is, higher in the fats and the calories. Feta is a really good option because it has such a strong taste. You can get away with just a little bit of feta sprinkled on on a pizza. It has that nice rich taste, and you can only use like a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons worth. So the last thing we gotta think about with pizza, and this is my favorite part, I think this is like where the magic happens. Crust and sauce and cheese are all gonna impact the taste of the pizza, but here's where you get to be really creative. You can go in so many different directions with what you're whipping up. So first I wanna talk about meat toppings. And this is where I really, really prefer homemade pizzas over store-bought ones, because you have control of what you're putting on there. And so things like pepperoni and sausage, the way that they're typically preserved is by using nitrates or nitrites. And those unfortunately have been linked with poor health conditions, including significantly raising your risk for colorectal cancer. So, that is a cancer that's on the rise, so we really want to be minimizing that in our diet. Usually if I order from Pizza Hut or a place like that, I doubt, we don't know, and I really doubt that they are using ones that don't contain it. So personally, I tend to not even have the sausage or pepperonis if possible, but if you're gonna have it, so this is turkey uncured pepperoni. So this is using turkey, so it's gonna be a healthier version, it's gonna be lower in fat, it's a leaner protein. And then uncured, so they actually don't use the nitrates or nitrites to preserve this. So you can choose a healthier version. Then I love to use just good, healthy, lean protein. So grilled chicken is one of my favorites. In fact, I'm gonna show you 2 different grilled chicken pizzas today. Again, keeping in mind, there is some benefit to putting that high protein meat on your pizza, especially like in that chicken form, because it's gonna offset those carbohydrates from the crust. Veggies though, this is where it's at. This is, like I said, this is where the magic happens. And for me, I think this is just a great way to slip in a ton of nutrition. In fact, at the end, we're gonna compare, like a homemade veggie slice to the Pizza Hut veggie slice, but you pack it full of nutrition, so vitamins, minerals, those phytochemicals that we find in all the plant foods that give them their color and comes with tons of health benefits. Everything from, helping our memory to reducing cancer risk to lowering inflammation in the body. And so the more color we get in, the better. As I mentioned at the beginning, I have a rule when I do this with my nephews, and I've done this actually with cooking classes with kids, is you have to pick 3 different, veggie toppings. And typically, you might get a little pushback, but they can make it fun, they can make it colorful, you can make it a competition. There's so many different directions you can go. And it's a good way for them to get it in. And then for me, as you're gonna see, you can control the amount of vegetables. When you get a veggie pizza from a typical pizza place, it's what, maybe 2 tablespoons per slice, maybe a 1/4 cup or something of actual vegetables on there. You'll see in a minute, I load mine up with vegetables because you're still gonna get the cheesy taste and the sauce taste and that crust taste, but you're getting in all sorts of vegetables and they're so rich in fiber, it actually fills up your stomach. So you could get away with eating 1 piece loaded with veggies, come out of there being like, wow, I'm really full, as opposed to, those other pieces that you could just kind of pack them away. So let's make some pizza. So this first one, I'm just gonna do your typical traditional veggie pizza, but I'm gonna show you the way that I like to do it at home. So I'm using the Boboli cauliflower crust, but you could be using any crust that you prefer. I'm gonna go with just the traditional marinara sauce. And keeping in mind, if you want to be measuring this out, especially if you are watching your sodium. So, I know this is, I'm using the sauce from Trader Joe's, and it's about 300 milligrams of sodium per 1/4 cup. So, again, depending on your nutrient needs, your taste preferences, I like sauce on my pizza, so I get it nice and saucy. And I am not a big crust person. I like to kind of get it as far to the edge as possible because I really just like all that goodness, but do it however you prefer. Next is gonna be the cheese. So again, you can do whatever you like. I tend to like to put a little cheese at the bottom, then I put veggies, and then I load it up with cheese. Now this is something that you're probably gonna wanna measure out because cheese, it's high in calories, it's high in fat and those types of things. It's actually kind of higher in sodium as well. So I'm gonna use a cup of cheese for this entire pizza. So I'm gonna measure this out, but as I mentioned, I'm going to sprinkle a little here at the bottom to get us started. Doesn't have to be a ton. And then I'm gonna just start loading it up with vegetables. And you might think I'm crazy, but I really just like to almost have like an inch thick of pizza. And you can use any vegetables you want. So I'm putting in some broccoli on here now, some mushrooms. One of the things that I'll do is I'll buy already pre-cut up vegetables sometimes at the grocery. If you're lucky, you can find some on like Manager Special that have to be used that day, but it's easy. You swoop in, they're already cut up for you. You can just come home and dump it on your pizza. Sometimes I'll put zucchinis or squashes. I've even done pumpkin before with like a ricotta cheese. I mean, again, the possibilities are endless. Like, get on Google or just start like looking in your fridge and having fun with it. I'm gonna put some onion on here. And again, as we add the vegetables, all these different colors that we're seeing come from those phytochemicals I was talking about, and those are what are packed full of the health benefits. So they're not like vitamins or minerals that like our body requires them, and if we don't have enough, we have a deficiency. But for every little color, every little vegetable I'm adding on here, comes with its own set of health benefits. So these red onions, for example, have something in there called quercetin, which is not only a cancer fighter, it's a mood booster. Broccoli comes with a whole bunch of cancer-fighting phytochemicals. I'm gonna put some bell peppers on here, and I'm just doing a variety of colors. Bell peppers are actually really high in vitamin C. They're right up there with citrus fruits. And everything that I'm adding on here, remember, is packed full of that fiber as well. I'm doing spinach. Now, I pre-cooked my spinach. One of the reasons I like to do this is because this amount of spinach here was a big bag of spinach that condensed down, which means all those nutrients are condensed down. You could absolutely do it with fresh spinach, but it's gonna you won't be able to get as much in there. It's kind of a little bit of a different feel. In fact, I'm gonna show you how to top pizza with some arugula or some greens in the next one, but I put some spinach on here. And again, just get creative, put what you like on here. I love olives, so I'm gonna throw a little on here. I'm gonna actually, even though we have tomato sauce, throw more tomatoes on here. Tomatoes get that bright red color from lycopene. That's another phytochemical that gives it lots of nutrients, and in fact, lycopene is really potent in fighting prostate cancer. And an interesting fact about lycopene is we actually better absorb it when the tomato has been cooked or processed. So this tomato sauce, we're gonna absorb that lycopene better, and the tomatoes I'm throwing on here, because I'm throwing them on and then we're gonna cook them up, that's gonna change that formation of the lycopene so we really get the benefits. So first of all, this looks beautiful, I think, in and of itself, and we could call it a day, but I'm gonna add the rest of the cheese on here because I think that's what really makes it. And maybe a cup isn't enough for you. This is, though, I think, just the measuring out so you are aware of the specific nutrients and nutrition facts and how it's going into your body. There you go. All right, so the next step and the last step is we're gonna put it in the oven. You can read either the instructions if you're following a recipe, or the crust might tell you. In general, about 450 degrees, 425, 450, 10 to 12 minutes. I'll usually put a timer for the lower end. I peek at it till it looks like it's good. But I'm gonna pop this in at 450 degrees and cook it for 12 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a couple other versions of pizzas that I like to do. So the first, and I'm gonna go ahead and use this high protein crust, is a pesto, using the pesto as a base. So I'm gonna put some pesto on here, spread it around, and again, use as much or a little as you like. I'm gonna use my finger because it's probably just gonna be me eating this afterwards. So, but we get the pesto spread around, but keep in mind, about a tablespoon of this is about 100 to 120 calories. I'm gonna add some grilled chicken. And again, this is just good protein. It's a nice, healthy, lean protein. I'll sometimes just grill up a couple chicken breasts, keep them in my fridge because I can do so much with it through the week. If you wanna cheat, Trader Joe's, I know, sells some already grilled up chicken. And again, it's how much time we have, what we're able to work with. For this one, I'm actually gonna use goat cheese then. I'm gonna just sprinkle some goat cheese crumbles on here. And then you'll see when I take it out of the oven, I'm actually going to top it with the arugula. So using fresh greens is actually I almost make salad pizzas, but that can be a really yummy way to, again, get in more nutrition. I think for this one, I'm gonna put a couple little onions on here. And then you'll also see I'm gonna top this one with a balsamic glaze. But that's kind of our pizza there. And then I'm just gonna do, so a typical pizza, but we're using the cauliflower crust. And this is, like I said, these are perfect for little individual sizes. Doing it with the kids, I'll let them, depending on how well they're doing that day, spread the sauce themselves, or I get them all set up like that. I'm gonna use a half a cup of cheese for this one. Again, I always just like to measure it so I know what I'm working with. And I personally like to sprinkle a little cheese first. And say I'm making this for my oldest nephew. He is a pepperoni lover, and I would much rather him having nitrate-free turkey pepperonis than the ones that we get at the store. So I'll put a couple of those on. I know I love to go with mushrooms. And again, kind of whatever nutrients you're looking for. Maybe a little spinach would be good on here. Now this isn't as full of veggies as the one that I'm cooking right now, but it's still, getting in as many veggies as you want, maybe a little extra tomato to get some more lycopene in there. And then I'll top it off with the rest of the cheese. And there you go. So I'm just gonna throw these ones in the oven. Same thing, it's at 450 degrees. I'm gonna set my timer for 10 minutes because I like to do it on the low end, and then keep checking in until it's ready to go. Usually though 10 to 12 minutes would be perfect. So we got our first veggie pizza out of the oven, and personally I think it looks so good. It's so full of color. You're never gonna find a veggie pizza like this ordering it from like Pizza Hut or Papa John's. Here's where my kitchen scissors come into play. And again, everyone laughs at me, but it's my favorite way to cut pizza. And I'm gonna cut a slice. So about 1/6 of this pizza, I would call a serving size. So we're gonna get this out. And there you go. And you know, all these veggies on here, 1, maybe 2 of these is gonna help fill you up. And you can always add a little salad on the side. And just to kind of like show you a comparison, you know, if you have this that you've made at home versus like the Pizza Hut veggie pizza. So with the recipe that I did today, this is gonna be about 210 calories compared to the Pizza Hut version, which is $2.99, so basically 300 calories. So you're saving about 90 calories right there. And again, you know, these things add up, and you know, you have 2 pieces, that's 180 calorie difference right there. When we're talking fat, this is actually about half the fat, coming in at about 5.7 grams of total fat compared to the Pizza Hut version, which is gonna be 12.6. Saturated fat though, and remember that's the less healthy fat, the one that tends to raise our cholesterol, that we wanna have less of. Pizza Hut's version of the veggie pizza is 3 times the saturated fat as this one. So they have 5.4 grams, this one's only 1.5 grams. And then as we look at some other things, you know, carbohydrates, they're pretty comparable. The sodium, this is about 500 milligrams of sodium. And again, I did not use a low sodium sauce. You know, that wasn't a nutrient I was specifically looking at, but with this recipe, it's about 500 milligrams of sodium. We don't really want to exceed 2,000 milligrams if possible, 2,000 to 3,000 in a day. So if you're having pizza, kind of think about the other stuff you're having that day. But the Pizza Hut version has 726 grams of sodium in there. Fiber, this has double the fiber, probably from all those, not probably, because of all these vegetables in here. So this has about 4 grams of fiber compared to Pizza Hut's, which is about 2.4 grams of fiber in their veggie pizza. Here's where I get excited. So when we start looking at nutrients, so this actually contains 34% of the calcium that you need to consume in a day, compared to the Pizza Hut that has 16% of the calcium. And we don't realize this, but calcium comes from things other than milk. So yes, we're getting calcium in the cheese, but we find calcium in vegetables. And so the more veggies we're putting on, we're kind of putting in more calcium there. When we look at some other nutrients that they look at on labels these days, like vitamin A, vitamin C. So this has 70.9% of the vitamin A you need in a day. The Pizza Hut's version only has 7.7%. Vitamin C, this has 69.7% of the vitamin C you need in a day. And remember, I have these vitamin C rich peppers, and tomatoes are a great source of vitamin C, compared to the Pizza Hut one that only has 1.6% of the vitamin C you need in a day. So while this one is better in calories, it's better in the fat content, it's also so much better for those really healthful nutrients. And it's nutrition and our health is not all about calories and carbs. It's all the good stuff too that comes with those plant foods. So just kind of wanted to show you that comparison right there. All right, and here's our other 2 that we did. So this, if you remember, this was on the pure cauliflower crust pizza. And if you remember, I said, you know, we cooked it on the parchment paper because it's a little less firm. And this is honestly kind of like this veggie loaded one. When I have it, it's a fork and knife pizza. You know, I'm not able to pick it up as well, but it tastes fantastic. You know, we've got some of those healthy pepperonis on there. I would have probably, if it was for just me, put a whole lot more veggies, but this is a perfect example of we can all kind of have our individual serving size and we all can make it how we want. And here is the pesto chicken goat cheese one. And what I'm gonna do, you know, it looks a little dry. We don't have a lot of the sauce on there, but what I'm gonna do is add arugula as a topping. Arugula is a great green, so it has all the health benefits that we see with greens, but it's also a cruciferous vegetable. So we also get all the health benefits like cancer fighting, cholesterol lowering, benefits that we would see with like broccoli or cauliflower or those types of things. So I put a little arugula on here, and then I'm gonna glaze it. I got a little balsamic glaze. I just like to drizzle it on here like that. And there you go, 2 really healthy and really actually quite simple to make pizzas at home. So if you have any of your own homemade pizza recipes, or if you've done different crusts, or even if you try one of these, we'd love to hear how it goes, or we'd love to hear those recipes. So please comment below so we can share it with everybody. And so if you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like this video. And then if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the Healthy Columbus YouTube channel, where you'll be notified when we post great content like this and more. And I will see you guys next time.